Hey all, welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to take a look at one of the latest additions to the Transformers Studio Series 86 line with Arcee. Even though we've gotten other versions of her, even recently within Earthrise and Kingdom, this one came out and a lot of people at first were a little baffled. Is she good? Is she not? What do we think? Well, we're about to find out when we jump in to everything to do with Arcee and the latest GotBot True review. Hey all, welcome back to the channel. I'm your host, your most humble of hosts, Dennis Moulton, aka GotBot. As always, man, please like, comment, share, of course, subscribe, and while you're at it, loud my baby. Hit that notification bell, please. It helps me out a ton, and it lets you know when content of all sorts goes up here on the channel. Check out Machinery of Man, The Everything Factor, all the groups that I'm either a mod or an admin for, as well as all of my social media links. All of that in the description down below. Also in the description down below, and if you're in a position to help the channel to grow, you can use the donate link. Check us out on Patreon, see what we have to offer to you through spring, or of course hit the join button right here on YouTube at any time and become a channel member. And this is the, as I said, Studio Series 86 Arcee. And some people, when she was first announced, said, I don't really think we need her, because we've had, you know, of course animated in Cyberverse, but in terms of a G1 styled Arcee, we recently had the Earthrise and Kingdom, though a lot of people didn't like that and said it was the epitome of a shell former. Nevertheless, it does exist, and there are people who do like that mold. And we had the earlier generations, or if you prefer, the Takara Legends, which was fantastic. Granted, missing a waist swivel, and perhaps the legs could move out a little bit better out to the side than what they did, you know, on that mold. But overall, when this came out, people said, is that just kind of a re-release of the Generations? And all of a sudden we realized, no, it's a little bit of Generations, it's a little bit of Earthrise, and it's a little bit of its own thing. Starscream Wife actually prefers the more pale pink on this, saying that it doesn't feel as cartoony, it feels a little more sleek, a little more like sheen. And you may or may not notice at this point that I've done a couple of custom paint apps. I do not have them done in the main review, but we will talk about them ever so slightly when we come back here. So without any further ado, how about we head over to the table and take a closer look at her. And I've been waiting for this for quite a while to take a look at this lady. It is the Studio Series 86 Arcee, and I've heard some terrible stories about her QC. I was nervous. We'll see how mine worked out. This, however, has potential to be possibly a definitive Arcee. We'll see. Before we look at her, we have to quickly look at the packaging first. And yes, my box is in rough shape here because this is all crushed up and bent up. Now, here's the funny thing. This came in a delivery box from Amazon. It wasn't in a mailer or anything like that. It was actually in a delivery box. So how this got destroyed within the box, I don't know. I have no idea. The box was sealed and whatnot. Now, that being said, there was no like packing around it or anything like that. So rattling around the box, I guess, it tore here, it crushed up here. Thank goodness I'm not a like mint in box collector. Here she is, looks very much like Arcee with her blaster. A nice close-up of her face over here. Very nice artwork. Like, this looks great. It's a great looking Arcee. And then on the back there we have the product images. Inside, we have this display stand. I assume it's the Battle of Autobot City. You'll notice that she has a gray blaster as well. Fun fact, the gray blaster that she has there is the exact same black blaster with the little gray grip underneath that came with the Generations Arcee almost a decade ago. See, same thing. Sadly, she doesn't come with the secondary blaster or the swords that the Generations one came with. And don't get me wrong, I understand why she didn't come with the extra blaster here or the two swords. By the way, I gave the two swords to the Generation Selects Nightbird, but they would be able to go like up here, for example, right? Her blaster can still go on her hip, or you could put her blaster, if you wanted to, up here. That's your choice. This, by my understanding, is supposed to be more of a like comic book iteration of Arcee, and she looks like she's ready to go in battle. I love the Generations Arcee. I liked it better than the Earthrise Arcee, that's for sure. And I don't have the Earthrise Arcee here because I don't think that she's pursuant to this conversation. I did look at the Legends Arcee some time ago. I'll actually put in, because we've done like a kind of a whole look at a bunch of Arcees. I'll put a couple of cards in. We looked at the animated, we looked at the generations here. We looked at the Legends, we looked at the Earthrise, and we looked at the Cyberverse, right? So we looked at a bunch. But this is the, I guess, the comparison that matters the most. If I had the Takara Legends one, I would definitely use that. I will say this about the Takara Legends one. Its paint is a 10 because the paint on this one is not quite a 10. It's almost there, but not quite. I'm just going to lay her aside. The paint on this Arcee, or the deco, I guess I should say, very, very close to what it should be. The pale yellow that's up to you. Starscream Wife preferred the pale pink, I'm sorry, because she thought that the deeper pink looked a little too, like Barbie, a little too cartoony, and she thought that the pale pink looked a little more sleek and looked like the sort of pink that we have actually seen on certain vehicles. Yes, we've actually seen a couple of pink vehicles. There's actually a bake shop around here that has a delivery van that's painted pretty much this shade of pink. So it's something in the real world for us to have an association with. The Autobot symbol's where it should be. The slightly pink tinge on the face is as it should be. The red lips, the blue eyes. The slightly pink arms, that's the way it should be. The white hands, that's the way it should be. Her hands are huge, by the way, but I'm okay with it because I get it. They wanted to avoid the thumb breakage issue that this one was known to have, and I actually have the closed hands on her. The gray in her tummy is basically as it should be. However, there is some molded in detail in the gray that should be red, at least on the background, and the little, I'll say, buttons on it should be pink. And right there on her lower tummy, there's another section that's molded in. It's all white, but there's a part of that that should also be gray. I'm probably going to paint it. The pink pelvis is right. The white legs, the pink kneecaps, the gray down on the foot, all of that correct. So, yeah, really all we're missing is the little bit of red detail on the buttons and stuff that's in the gray. And right here on the very center of her tummy, there should be a little bit of gray there as well. I'm going to say 9.5 for accuracy to the animation. What about the articulation for this Arcee? Well, I loved the articulation on the Generations, but the articulation undoubtedly is better here. We're starting really good with a 9.5. So for the articulation, we have a head that goes left, right, up, down, way up. I love that. The arms can go really all the way around. Elbow over 90 degrees, like way over 90 degrees, which I love. Arm out to the side, bicep swivel. Sadly, no wrist. Bum. I wish she had a wrist, I'm not gonna lie. This one does have a waist, which the Generations one doesn't have. It also technically, because of transformation, has an ab crunch. Now, a lot of people say that their hinges in here are super duper loose and she just comes undone and flops all around. Mine is solid. Mine does not flop all around. I guess I'm lucky that I got a good copy. But if those hinges are loose, I can see how she's totally ruined for you. I don't think that was engineered well because there doesn't seem to be locking points. Everything kind of collapses, but it seems like it all relies on the friction of the pins. And I think that is a bad way to go. You should have had a couple of tabs that really go in somewhere. And if there are locking tab points, then they don't lock, at least on my copy. Mine is held together well, but it's held together well totally because of friction. Nevertheless, if everything works as it should, waist swivel, ab crunch, love it. The legs, on the Generations, you kind of got to fake the hip and bring it out. It's really for transformation, but if you don't, then you don't get much of her ability to do the splits, I guess. Like the legs don't go out very far at all. They go out pretty good here, not perfect, but pretty darn good. The hips also go all the way forward. They go, I guess all the way back if you give her ab crunch, right? Thigh swivel. Knee to, I guess it's over 90 degrees. I like it. It's not perfect, but I like it. Ankle tilt, absolutely dig it. I'm just going to collapse the body again there because I did that. I mean, when it comes to the lower legs, the Generations one, like, you could get it out to the side, but you were really sort of manipulating. See if I can sort of show this. Just move her to the side for a bit. You were really manipulating this hinge in here, and when you would do so, like, you could get it out to the side, but it's definitely not natural. And I think the knee might have been deeper on the Generations one than it is here. I'm just going to double check that about the knee here. No, maybe they're comparable. Maybe the knee's about the same. It's over 90 degrees. I stand corrected. So, this one for articulation is better. If everything is toleranced well, I'm going to give it a 9.5. I would like for it to have a wrist. The only thing that really kind of slays me in robot mode is if we look back at the good old Generations and we look at her leg, yeah, we have the hole in the side, but the back of the leg is pretty filled in, the tires back there, right? Yes, it's hollow down here, but it has molded in stuff. The side of the leg's filled in, the front of the leg's filled in, the inside of the leg filled in. So I like that. And I think that the big bummer here is that she has hollowness way back here on the legs. Not a little bit, but a lot of hollowness back there. And on the inside of her thigh, oh man, so much hollowness. What a bummer. I'm sure that there will be some sort of like an upgrade kit or something for it. However, this Arcee cost me $14. This Arcee cost me $40. $41 actually. I mean, yeah, okay, there's definitely more engineering here. There's no doubt about it. And I understand that plastic was used in different places and whatnot, but man, for such a price increase, and I get that these are many years removed from one another, it would have been nice to kind of go the extra mile just a little bit and not have the hollowness on the legs. Just saying. Still, as it is, as everything is, you know, right now she's had a 9.5, and really a 9.5. She's doing great. Let's see about the transformation. So I'm going to take the blaster out of her leg, and where will we begin here? I think, because she really sort of flails out a little bit, let's start with spreading all of that out, and let's start with picking all of this up. And when we pick all of that up, we can pick up the whole front section. This front piece up here, the whole front piece, and I believe the head might be a new mold, but I believe all of this piece is all basically the same as the Generations. The difference being that it's only the chest down to here that flips up instead of her whole tummy section going with it, right? That's the one difference. But nevertheless, this still comes up and goes in the middle of the vehicle. Before, we would have taken the tummy piece down and folded it down here. So we don't do that. Then we have the arms, and they seem to kind of just go up and fit up under the hood, and you sort of just press them up there. So we'll take this one and do the same thing. The hands go up kind of under the shoulder pieces, which is part of the hood. And we should be able to just straighten that out. This one doesn't seem to want to be quite as straightened out. I'm going to make sure that these are straightened out, and then we're going to kind of go on from there. There we go. So for the front of the car, this is basically how it should look. We're going to go to kind of the waist down section next, and kind of the back of the vehicle. Well, doesn't this just look horrific? So we're going to take this and bring it out here. We're going to bring that piece up and flip out this section, and this whole piece starts to come back. This is going to be the back of the vehicle. Now, with the Generations Arcee, really all you're flipping out is like the top section right here, and her thighs form the back of the vehicle. This time we actually have a back to the vehicle. Make sure you bring this bumper out, because it's easy to kind of pop that off, I find. We're going to bring out this on the side. We're going to bring it down just for a bit of clearance from this piece up here, basically, and bring that out on the side. And now we're going to just sort of leave this like this. Then we're going to bring the whole back here, and we're going to put the legs up, and they turn to each other. Ooh. And come together. Now, we have to turn the waist around. Very important that we do it, because you will notice that here on the heels we have a couple of pegs. They're going to slot into a peg hole up right there. So we're going to turn her at the waist and sort of collapse all of this up under the vehicle. And we're going to, I do have to fold this down, by the way. My mistake. My mistake. Got to fold all that down. Then this whole armature here comes up under the vehicle. Now we need to bring the feet together and make sure that they go down in the vehicle where they're supposed to be. This is just a matter of sort of finagling everything to get it in place. And then finagling the side tabs, which honestly, I mean, they're not there. There you go. Finagle those side tabs. Finagle the feet down underneath. And though I need to solidify a couple of things here, basically, boom, in the end, here we have Arcee in her vehicle mode. This is how the underside of the vehicle looks, and way back in here, there's a bit of a precarious slot that we can place the blaster in to stay in there. And here we have the 86 vehicle mode and the Generations vehicle mode. Again, this is going to kind of boil down to your aesthetic preferences, right? So the 86 undoubtedly looks the most like the original animation. Granted, the seats should be gray instead of white, and that's about it, really. I mean, the back here being white is accurate. It shouldn't be pink. All of this pink right here and up right here, all that's accurate. The gray in between, accurate. The white up here, accurate. Does this one look more interesting? Sure. But if you're a G1 purist, I think that the 86 is the way to go. Arguably, if you have the Takara Legends version, you might be able to stick with that one, and it would be just fine. But in the modern age, in mainline, for most places around the world, the 86 is going to be the most animation accurate. By the way, the Autobot symbol is also accurate. So is the white here, here, and here, because that's the way it was. Actually, yeah, that's the way it was on the original animation. But this admittedly looks more interesting. There are people who will still prefer this because they'll like the deeper pink, because the vehicle is more interesting, because they're more connected to the comic books, because they just think that she looks like she's ready for battle. This one looks too 80s. I have to go with the kind of objective scores as best that I can. I like that instead of the back end just being her legs, though this is cool and certainly looks the part, I like that we actually have a cohesive car. More cohesive than I think it was with Earthrise when we had the whole feeling that it was like a soapbox. Or soap dish, I mean. And you cannot just take off the shell of this and still have a vehicle. It won't work. You can't do it. I'm going to say the transformation for the 86 is... we were getting a 9.5, and we were getting, I believe, a 9.5. I'm going to say it's, again, around 9.5. It's a great Arcee. If everything works the way it should, then the 86 Arcee is about a 9.5. However, if you have QC issues with those joints in the middle, like for her ab crunch and stuff, if they're loosey-goosey and she's just flopping all over the place, then, I mean, she's a failure. She's a 1 or 2. It 100% boils down to the QC. In terms of which Arcee is better, I couldn't really tell you. This is lovely. This is tremendous. It lacks a waist. This is lovely. This is tremendous. It has more hollowness in the legs. There's good and bad with both of them. Neither is perfect, but both are very, very strong. By the way, as just one last final point before we go out of here, here's what underneath looks like for the Generations, with the 2 legs coming up the sides and the hands in the middle holding onto the blaster. This is her tummy folded down that I mentioned earlier. Her secondary blaster is back here. This is the underneath of the new one, where the two arms are up front now instead of down here, and the legs come together in the center instead of coming up the sides. These share a lot of parts, but the engineering and the way the transformation is accomplished is very different. Like I said, both are successful, neither are perfect. The Studio Series 86, for me, based on the objective scores, 9.5 for her look, 9.5 for her articulation, and I'm saying about a 9 for her transformation. Overall, she's about a 9.25. She is a tremendous Arcee. And here we are once again, and here she is. So, again, I'm going to point this out. There could potentially be QC issues, especially with the way the kind of torso accordion's together. If yours is loose and comes apart, then like that's going to ruin it. Mine's not, luckily. And it does give her an ab crunch, which again, like nothing is falling out, right? So like I'm very fortunate, but I feel like a lot of that is held with tension around the pins. So if that tension isn't just right, yeah, you're going to have issues. From my experience, I had to score it high because mine works well. In terms of the paint, I think that mostly it was there. We were missing a little bit of red on the tummy with really kind of some pink highlights on the buttons on it. And we were missing a little bit of gray just like down here on the chest section. And arguably maybe some lights and stuff in car mode. I'm not so concerned about that. But I was certainly a little bit concerned about the robot mode. As it was still probably the best mainline Arcee that we've ever gotten. But this just makes it a little bit more kind of animation accurate. The addition of the waist swivel is nice. I don't know why they left these holes here. I've heard some customizers fill them in. I would not want to try and match the pink personally. But to each their own. I mean, I guess you could put a blaster up here. I guess you could use the swords from the Generations or whatever up here. I mean, there's options. It's just, I don't know if you needed to leave them there. Her gray blaster, I like it. Again, it doesn't have any paint on it. I think I preferred the black with the gray, but the gray blaster, you know, the completely gray blaster with no kind of black and gray differentiation is more animation accurate. Too bad she doesn't have her other blaster, but we do have a more, I'll say, filled in back end to the car. So like while we lose the swords, one of the blasters, I'm okay with that when we get a back end that is a little bit more a filling in the car without it being just a plain up shell former. Surprisingly, the transformation is not like the Generations. I thought that it was going to be very similar, but it's really, really not. I like the articulation. I like the transformation for the most part. Just a couple of like minor nitpicks, but nothing too major. I think the articulation is fantastic, especially with something like the leg being able to go a bit further out to the side than before. Now, as I said, I've added a couple of minor paint apps, and I did say it was animation accurate. Now, probably the easiest way for me to show you why I did this and kind of the comparison is to show you an image of what I have done here now next to, I guess, an image of the G1 animation, and you can do the comparison yourself when you look at this. Right? So, I mean, make your own judgment calls. Arguably, the like big button that I kind of painted the pink here, that could have been left red, right? In certain animation it is, in certain animation it's not, so it varies. I feel like this is about as perfect of a mainline Arcee as we are ever going to get, even though the backpack's still a bit big. But I feel like for a mainline, for what can be accomplished at that level, as excellent as the Generations is, and I love it, or the Takara Legends, as great as the Cyberverse or the Animated has been, even as functional as the Earthrise was, because whether you like the design or not, it does function the way it's designed quite well. I still feel like that this one makes the backpack as slender as it can be. It looks like the silhouette. It has pretty much all the articulation you could want, nay for a wrist swivel. It even has ankle tilt, which is something else the Generations didn't have. If you have the Takara Legends, I don't know if there's enough here that would make you necessarily go in on this one. However, if you would really like a waist, if you would really like better outward motion on the hips, and if you would really like an ankle tilt, then this was probably the way to go. just be aware that, you know, you're gambling a little bit with the QC of, I guess, the middle of the body. For me, it was great and she scored great, but if you had the QC issues, I absolutely understand why you would score her lower. Let me know what your experience has been with the Studio Series 86 Arcee. I appreciate you guys coming by, giving me some of your extremely valuable time. I do know how important it is to you. If you're in a position to help the channel to grow, you can use the donate link. You can check us out on Patreon. You can see what we have to offer to you through Spring, or of course you can hit the join button right here on YouTube at any time, baby. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, stick around, have some fun with us here on the channel, and especially don't forget that somehow, some way, each and every single solitary day, you right there, you do make a difference in the world, and I look forward to the next time that you and I get together to have another visit. Either in the live streams on Thursday nights at the stop motion premieres, or the old-fashioned way right here, inside the videos.